The 1967 through 1971 period was a major transitional period for Aurora. In 1967, John Cuomo escaped the harsh front office atmosphere by retiring. A year later, the company's board of directors forced Joe Giammarino to leave the company he had helped found. "I was fired from my own company," he declared. Then in 1969, a group of investors headed by Charles M. Tycho bought a controlling interest in Aurora, prompting Abe Sykes to retire a year later. In 1971, Aurora's new owners sold out to food giant Nabisco. Within 3 whirlwind years, Aurora Plastics Corporation had become a completely different company. This transformation was symbolized by a new Nabisco-selected name for the firm, Aurora Products Corporation. Nabisco President Lee S. Brickmore declared a great potential for Aurora as the West Hempstead toy maker expanded into games and toys. Nabisco's strategy focused on aggressive, rapid, gross sales growth to establish a dominant market position in games and toys. As the logic went, operating losses would be expected during this growth phase, but once the leadership role had been established, profits would soon follow. As events unfolded, that's just how the strategy played out, sort of. Gross sales increased rapidly, but Aurora, which had never lost money, began posting sizable deficits each year. Change was not kind to Aurora. The new visionary. With the investor-led sale to Nabisco and the departure of Abe Sykes, Aurora got a new president, Charles M. Tycho, a young, cigar-smoking former vice president of cosmetics giant Revlon. In no uncertain terms, Tycho aimed to transform Aurora. No more Sykes-inspired seat-of-the-pants planning. Aurora would change from hobby-oriented firm to a games-oriented toy maker. Accompanying Tycho's new vision was a major personal shakeup. Many longtime Aurora department heads either departed or were fired. With a new emphasis on games and toys, neglect pervaded Aurora's original product line, plastic model kits. Model moldering continued to receive strong, even increased support. Tycho felt that slot cars had growth potential in the toy market. Brand not only survived the bloodletting, but actually benefited. He was promoted to Vice President for Research and Development, and in 1970 introduced a product illustrating Aurora's new emphasis on toys. Power Slicks had been devised by Fred Addix of Innova, a California design company. He showed it to Brand, who brought the system into production. Power Slick's major feature, straight track sections were powered, while the remainder was flexible enough to mold into banked curves. When Power Slick's 1/32 scale cars hit the powered strips, kids pushed power buttons and the car's momentum was greatly enhanced. Power came from 6 D-cell batteries. Sets featured black power sections and bright orange and lavender curves. The first 2 cars were mod-customized thingies created by HMS. Later, Innova added 4 conventional cars to the line. Unfortunately, the toy's concept was flawed. Car pickup shoes dragged during the gliding phase, causing the cars to stop before they reached the powered straights. Power Slicks lasted 2 years. State of the Union, model motoring. Sales of Aurora's mainline Thunderjet HO sets continued to increase in the late 1960s. Even though the initial burst of enthusiasm had long since passed, HO sales hadn't been hurt by the collapse of large-scale slots. Indeed, the big slot crash probably helped Thunderjet since it caused Aurora to channel most remaining slot car funding into HO. As the 1960s drew to a close, Aurora began to make real improvements in model motoring. Perhaps most important from an operating standpoint was the evolution of the speed controller. From the earliest days, Aurora's novel steering wheel controller had been criticized as cute but clumsy. In 1965, it had been abandoned for a plunger-type controller with a thumb button, 1347. This design was unique because it worked by compressing a stack of silicone wafers inside the plunger. It improved electrical flow through the controller, and thus increased speed. Unfortunately, the new design generated too much heat, a problem for any handheld device. As a correction, Aurora introduced the Mark II controller, 1346, in 1969. But poor design caused its internal parts to stick. To solve this problem, Aurora hired Jim Russell, large-scale slot car industry veteran and K&B consultant. Russell was glad to join Aurora. With the crash of large-scale slots, my business had deteriorated to virtually nothing. Russell's controller, 1345, was based on a product his old company had marketed. Its pistol shape was innovative, and in 1969, Aurora began including it in its sets. The controller put the resistor and its heat into the pistol's barrel. It also changed actuation from thumb movement to a more sensitive finger trigger. This design was a permanent solution to Aurora's controller problems. But Russell was hired for more than just his controller. Charles Tycho wanted someone with serious experience in large-scale slot cars to help Aurora revive the 1/32nd slot car segment. Aurora's president believed the larger Ajets would be more appropriate as Christmas gifts. Russell believed Tycho's attempted revival was a losing proposition, but he agreed to support the project. To my undying shame, he later confessed. To accompany the Ajet relaunch, development progressed on an all-new, inexpensive track system. As a scaled-up copy of HO track, the new Ajet track had power rails set away from the slot. The result of this costly retooling debuted in Aurora's 1970 to 1971 big car racing catalogs. But the concept was never sold. Performance was non-existent, observed Russell. To say the least, it was a total flop. For the record, the new Ajet set contained a Ferrari 612 and a McLaren M12, 3351 and 3352, and a Mirage Coupe and a Ferrari 312P, 3353 and 3354, but only two chassis for the four bodies. In 1971, a set of crazy Californian wheelie trikes, 3357, 3358, were added to the 132nd line, mainly to use up existing inventory before shutting down the line. Back in the world of HO. During this time, Aurora continued with its model motoring upgrade program. In 1969, Aurora introduced an HO car that was a clear improvement on the 6-year-old Thunderjet design. Aurora called the new cars Wild Ones: Mustang, Ford GT, Camaro, and Cougar, 1416 through 1419. Though the bodies were regular T-Jets, they were molded in snow-white plastic, striped, numbered, and decorated with company logos like STP and Pennzoil. More changes awaited under the hood. Aurora designers stuffed a T-Jet motor with hotter wound armatures, a new gear ratio, silver-plated pickups, and brushes for improved conductivity, and soft sponge rubber tires. The cars were indeed the fastest cars ever made, as the ad said, but real increases in speed were marginal. Perhaps Aurora developed Wild Ones because it sensed a looming war with its one remaining HO competitor, Tyco. The New Jersey-based train and slot car manufacturer had been making inexpensive sets for the Christmas market throughout the 1960s, but Aurora dominated both mass and hobbyist sales. Tyco was perennially left with whatever remained. In 1968, however, Tyco made news when it improved the quality of its car bodies. Hobbyists noted the changes and began speculating that Tyco was preparing for a serious run at Aurora. That speculation proved prophetic in 1970 with the launch of Tyco Pros. Promoted with a strong hobby advertising campaign, Tyco Pros featured an inexpensive Mabuchi HT50 inline can motor crammed into a wide, low-slung pan chassis. The design allowed the motor to efficiently transmit power to the rear axle through a simple 2-gear linkage. With wide racing slicks to grip the track, Tyco Pros were the fastest out-of-the-box car available, except when they broke down, which was frequently. The rival of Tyco Pros threw West Hempstead's R&D staff into pandemonium. Everybody was having a stroke, recalled Derek Brand. He considered the T-Jet a better product for the home market. After all, its rugged construction represented a clear advantage to a toy manufacturer. However, when it came to the needs of serious slot car hobbyists, Brand had to admit that Tyco cars were indeed faster.